One man is being victimized by our own government. One man whom they fear, yet who millions love. One man who is willing to take the poison arrows of lawfare. One man whose voice has been taken away by a corrupt judge operating in a corrupt system. One man who has been ridiculed and insulted. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who refused to back down. One man who stands between us and them. One man that wants to see America protected again. One man who wants to see America prosper again. One man who understands that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. One man who understands and protects the blessing of life. One man who wants to restore American exceptionalism. One man who once again wants to make America that shining city on a hill for all to see. A place where all the people of the world glowingly set their eyes upon. America. One man who unashamedly wants to make America great again. That one man is Donald Trump.
This is Fanfare with Barry Cunningham.
Welcome, everybody, to the 12:30, actually the 1 o'clock show today. Today we've got a press conference with Karoline Leavitt. Hope you guys all had a chance to take a nap and come on back for this press conference. And unfortunately, I'm thinking we're going to see much of the same. If you guys were around this morning, you saw that these idiots, these people in the press, now we know why President Trump calls them scum. They are scum. No sooner did the general stop talking this morning that they decided they were going to go jump in and be the usual vermin that they are. Fortunately, Caitlin Collins wasn't there, but Jennifer Griffith was there from Fox, and she got spanked. It just turned into a complete quagmire. I'm going to show you some of that if you didn't have a chance to get up at 7:30 this morning and join us. I got a whole bunch to share with you because I think we're going to see more and more of the same. After President Trump went after CNN last night, they took their opportunity in this morning's press conference. Those of them that weren't even there, they pulled it and they went into full self-defense mode. They realized at this point that they're under attack, deservedly so, but they're still not understanding. You need to change your ways. It's not going to work. The media sucks. Even when they're bringing on experts, and their experts are saying, nah, it did what it was supposed to do, they still are fighting tooth and nail to do things their way, to trash the Trump administration any chance that they get. Let's see here. But before we get there, I do have some other information I want to share with you. And I should have had it ready. My bad. But this is huge, absolutely huge information. Let me scroll to it so I can show it to you. This morning, I would say it's breaking news, but it happened a little while ago. And the big news earlier today was this. I guess I can use it breaking. It's kind of breaking news. Maybe it might be breaking news for you. So
breaking news into the Fanfare news feed.
All right. So the breaking news that we have is that this morning, at, what time was this? 10:20 a.m., a little over 2 hours ago. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3, all 6 conservatives and the 3 wannabe judges, the 6-3 in favor of South Carolina banning Planned Parenthood from Medicaid getting taxpayer dollars. It's open season on PP. Every red state now can follow suit. They have the blueprint. Run with it. Absolutely run with it. Of course, Ketanji Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan dissented, which is, I'm sure, all the media will talk about. They'll talk about the dissent, not about the fact that that's it, you're done, no more alternative. I'm sure there will be a district court judge that will come up with some judgment and say, hey, you can't do it. You got to keep doing it, even though the Supreme Court told them not to. But this is huge news. This is absolutely huge. No more baby removal whatsoever using government money. Government, your tax dollars will no longer fund baby removal. That is a huge thing. Absolutely huge. So you can see them spinning around and their heads spinning around in circles behind them like the Exorcist, because that is a big proponent. That is a big part of the Democrat agenda. And slowly but surely, little chips are being made in the Democrat armor. It's being chopped to bits. And I love it, absolutely love it. And so without the USAID dollars, without the Medicaid dollars, a lot of the things that the Democrats count on will no longer be. So as of this morning, just to recap, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3, saying that you cannot use taxpayer dollars in Medicaid to fund baby removal. Whew. Thank God. God bless. God bless. That's all I can say. So let them continue to freak out and do all the things that they've been doing. It's too bad. Now back to the CNNs of the world, the idiots that are out there. This is going to become what you're going to see today. It was funny. I had told you beforehand what I thought we were going to see in the press conference with Pete Hegseth, and it absolutely happened. And now I'm pretty sure this is what's coming up at this point. You're going to hear you might hear something about the Planned Parenthood thing. You're probably going to hear something about the big, beautiful bill. And of course, they're going to have the attack dogs out there to talk about Pete Hegseth and what's Iran and Israel. They're talking about yesterday's news. President Trump is already moving on to today's news. At 4 p.m., he's got some sort of ceremony about the big, beautiful bill, which I'm sure Karoline Leavitt is going to want to focus on that, but they're going to keep trying to drag her back. The word there is _drag. That's all they can do. So I put together a little montage to give you an idea what probably is going to be said today. Let's take a listen.
As you well know, what did you hear in this press conference that rang true or that rang false?
Well, Stop. You're asking this Nimrod on your network what rang true and what rang false. You're asking this guy on CNN who you're going to ask him his interpretation on whether a 5-star general and the Secretary of Defense, whether what they said rang true or not. See, now the people don't listen. They just like, oh, okay, this guy's gonna. Who the hell is this guy? You can tell this. Hold on. You can tell this dude's never picked up a post, never picked up a rifle, never sat on a post, never done anything, and now he's gonna critique a 5-star general on behalf of the CNN audience. What's really true, since he knows more than a 5-star general.
Here, the secretary referred to fake news CNN and then immediately proceeded to effectively confirm CNN's reporting. Again, emphasized that this intelligence assessment was preliminary, made with low confidence. That's exactly, again, what CNN reported. He also tried
No, you didn't. You took this, quote, low confidence report and acted as if it was something out of the Bible. You never qualified it and said, this is a low confidence report. We're not really sure here. No, you went 24/7 immediately saying it wasn't a success.
To back up President Trump's assertion that these nuclear facilities were completely and totally obliterated by forcefully reading out quotes from others who did not say the same thing. He read quotes asserting that the nuclear sites had been badly damaged, severely damaged, that the strikes had done enormous damage. None of that is synonymous with complete obliteration. The secretary also...
So this dude is a walking dictionary right now. Okay, so that's what you want to say. Can you look up the word scum, vermin, and suck, and relay them to how CNN is appearing to normal people? Go ahead and verify that.
Asked rhetorically if the media had been reporting about the enormous challenge on pilots of conducting a bombing mission this long. Well, guess what? CNN did. A couple of days ago, our Michael Williams wrote a story talking to pilots who have been involved in somewhat similar missions that began that this mission was a, quote, massive undertaking that required V-2 bomber pilots to test the limits of human endurance during a 37-hour mission. So, yes, CNN reported this. And then fourth, just in passing, the secretary asserted that this was the most complex military operation in history. I guess that's something I can't definitively fact check, but I'm sure that some military historians would take issue with that, point to things like...
There should have been a period right there. That's not something I can verify. And end your statement. But, you know, I'm sure. How are you sure that historians are going to find out this or that and the other thing? You don't. Again, this is gaslighting 101.
Say D-Day, for example.
Early U.S. intel assessments suggest strikes on Iran did not destroy nuclear sites. From the New York Times, strikes set back Iran's nuclear program by only a few months, U.S. report.
She just quoted CNN. She quoted what CNN said. Do you see the words low confidence in there at all? Maybe they should call Jen Psaki and say, hey, listen, you forgot. We did say low confidence, you lying sack of crap. There it is right there. You didn't say nothing about low confidence. You said early. You didn't say that, you know, we're not really sure here. And it's right there. It's right there. I didn't have to look that far to find it. No, it was right there. And it was funny because other people noticed the exact same thing I did. This is what Megyn Kelly popped up. Hey, CNN, why didn't you reveal in your initial big scoop that the report was of low confidence? Would that have been relevant to the readers to assess how credible it was? Why didn't you reveal your reporter's long history, Natasha, of falling for every false intel leak in the universe so as long as they could hurt Trump? The fact checker just went on television and lied about the fact check. And I didn't have to, it literally took me 30 seconds to find Jen Psaki showing you what CNN said. And then now today they stuck in, it verified what we said, it was low confidence. No, you didn't. Caught ya.
Says. That's according to an initial classified intelligence assessment, which reportedly found that the U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, quote, did not collapse their underground buildings and set back Iran's nuclear program by only a few months. In fact, from all this reporting, a lot of it came out this afternoon, it turns out that much of Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium was moved before the strikes, which destroyed little of the nuclear material. In our own reporting, NBC News put an even finer point on it, saying, quote, an initial assessment by the Defense Intelligence Agency concludes that the U.S. airstrikes conducted over the weekend on Iran's nuclear enrichment sites were not as effective as Donald Trump said.
You lied too. I don't know how they can sit in front of cameras. I would be embarrassed if I came on here and just said, well, let me just see, because I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you mad in a little while. But I could not even imagine talking to people and just completely lying and not giving a crap whether you know I'm lying or not. They have no issue. Well, hold on. I always have to stop when I get the text from SV and Ashley. SV says, General is a 4-star general. Well, people are saying he's 4-star, but he had 5 on his shoulder, so maybe it hasn't been updated. I'm just telling you. We can pick up pictures and look, but if 4-star makes you feel better, I'll say 4-star. until we go back and get the tape, and I'll show you the 5 stars, unless my eyes were failing. Nonetheless, we're talking about BS from the media at this point. And if my eyes are failing me because it was 7:30, I think he had 5 stars. In any event, the media, what reporter had access to the site? What reporter supposedly read this intel report that you all ran with immediately?
To state the obvious, claiming you obliterated Iran's nuclear program doesn't make it so. And it's something that people then assess, including the military. But for Trump, it's always about the one day of headlines, the one-word slogan, claiming victory right off the bat, about obfuscation and defiance being prioritized over facts. And that will continue, I expect, even in the face of these new facts.
Facts. I don't understand how the words flow out their mouth in terms of talking about other people and facts. When they know they're reading something, maybe that's it, maybe because she's paid to read, she's not paid to do any research, and so as long as the words flow perfectly on the screen and she can do with inflection, she cashes the check. Facts? No, I don't know if there are any facts. Did you write facts on the screen? Hey, no, whatever. Okay, if facts are on here, I'm going to read them. I'm getting paid to put inflection and to smile and pretend like I know what the hell I'm talking about. Speaking of being paid to just have when someone stick their hand up their butt, Mr. Ozempic Potato Head says this.
And as chief media analyst, Brian Stelter. Brian, thanks for joining us. We should just note that...
I got to get one of those stances where you sit like this. You know what I mean? While they're talking. Hey, and soon we're going to be talking to Barry Cunningham. Barry, he's going to be coming on real soon. Yeah. Is that how you do it?
Excess attacks are false. CNN has reported that this was a preliminary assessment. Why is he now trying to say otherwise?
Because you did. Because you guys got out there and you're hoping people don't read back 2 days ago. And so now they're out there doing this is the funniest thing I've ever seen. You guys may say, well, Barry, why are you showing it to us? Because you're seeing backpedaling. You're seeing them not wanting to get sued like CBS. You're seeing all this because they got to cover their tracks. Not realizing people have clips and cuts and everything. And the rest of us can hit a button and play it. And look, they're lying.
Right, and journalists are not the main story here. The main story is what you just covered, the impact of the U.S. strikes on Iran. The public still has a lot that wants to know about the impact of the strikes. But the administration is picking a fight with the press and casting legitimate journalism as unpatriotic right now. The Trump administration is not actually challenging the facts of what CNN reported. Instead, it's objecting to the existence of reporting. The Trump administration...
This guy go to the Kamala Harris School of Journalism. What the hell did he just say? Maybe his teleprompter broke down. The facts of the facts, not really the facts of the... What are you saying? Is it so bad right now that whoever is putting the information in the teleprompter can't even write stuff that makes sense right now? And they just get out there, fix it, do something before Karoline comes out at 1 o'clock and blows you guys out of the water with charts and videos.
Just wants everyone to repeat Trump's words instead of following up, instead of asking questions. And Hegseth was very emotional, almost spitting mad about this at the press conference this morning, very clearly trying to perform for the president. And we know that is part
Could they be more condescending? Could they be more condescending? Performing for the president. This guy's out there, he's a clown out there dancing for Donald Trump. He doesn't have any personal ideas, doesn't have any personal feelings. He has no knowledge of what went on. He's out there dancing. We're at war. I'm telling you, we're at war.
Why the president picked Hegseth from Fox in order to run the Defense Department. That kind of performance is what Trump was looking for. But it seems to me, Wolf, Trump is far from the first politician to use the military as a shield against fair-minded scrutiny. Trump is saying that the B-2 pilots were devastated by this news coverage. But the reporting by CNN that was matched by the New York Times and other outlets was not the last word on the matter. It was really just the first word. There's so much more reporting to do on this topic. This is a very complex matter, even though Trump tried to make it sound simple on Saturday night. It's really important to note what CNN did not report. CNN did not report that this mission was a failure. Far from it. It may have turned out to be a tremendous success. We just don't know all the facts yet, and neither does the U.S. government. So this...
We simply do not know all the facts yet. So you're telling America quite clearly you have no idea what the F you're talking about. You just admitted to every single person watching it, you're making everything up. We don't even have all the facts yet. Then why the hell are you even talking about it? See, journalism and what he said don't jive. The idea of being a journalist is to do your research and get all the facts and then report the facts. Not, let me think this might be how it is, or this person told me that, or this person over here, they have an idea, and before we know what really happens, we're going to tell you what we think happens, and we're going to present that as news. That's why I show you this stuff. That's why I tell you, don't mute, you're going to learn something, because they can't help but spew the actual truth bits once in a while. If you don't know, I just talked to my grandson, and I was telling him about game films. I told you, I said, you got to watch. You got to watch everything. You got to see what the step is. What does the guy do when it's a pass? What does he do when it's a run? You got to know what this guy is thinking. You want to know what he had for dinner last night when he takes a poop. You want to know. And so when I hear people say, I can't even watch this stuff, that's because you're watching. Stop watching. Start listening. Start digging into what people say so that when you talk to others, you can give them information about what's going on. Want an example? Let me give you a quick example. I said 5-star general, and I had people already grokking it to see if it was really a 5-star general. Hey, Barry, he's only 4. Hey, okay, you're doing it in real time. That's what I'm telling you. Listen to what these idiots say.
Performance from Hegseth today, it's part of a pattern of attacking the press, trying to claim it's unpatriotic to ask these questions. But I think the history going back to Vietnam and more recently the Iraq War shows that it is quite patriotic to ask these questions and hold the government to account.
Yeah, we were simple.
Now you want to do that? Or is it only involving war? See, one of the problems that the media, the libs, and everybody, those type of people have, is that they conflate news and what they really want the messaging to be. If you're patriotic, if you're truly patriotic, if you're rooting for this country, you really want to see America succeed, wouldn't your previous statement take precedence about wanting to wait until the facts are out there? I knew, as many of you did, when we were watching them talk this morning, that it was over their heads. They showed video. They showed the ordnance going into the ground, how it was met, what happens when it gets deep, how it explodes, I didn't even know how it's got different ordnances on different sidings, so it can blow out and it can blow this way, and it can just do all kinds of damage. Why didn't you report that? Why did I have to hear that from a 4-star general? You could have had all kinds of simulations showing, hey, here's why I think it works. I'm not positive that it works, but here's what a MOP can do. When it drops down, here's what happens. Boom, boom, and it explodes on all sides. And then it's followed by another one who can take over for the blah, 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 blah. That's news. We saw news. And those of us who watched it, we said right then and there, they're not going to talk about it. So if you're patriotic, to me, I don't know, if you ever watch sports, here's a good example. You ever watch sports? Your football team, your basketball team, your baseball team, your hockey team. We just won the championship down here in Florida. You ever notice when you look at hometown sports, they always amplify the good. I'm sick and tired of the Miami Dolphins. I think they suck, which is why I'm not doing stuff with the Dolphins anymore, because I couldn't realistically continue to watch these bums. So I said, instead of going on and lying about this is the greatest team ever, I'm like, I can't do it. But there are other people who cover different teams, including the Miami Dolphins, who are doing the same thing they did last summer. Oh, it's going to be a great year. We're going to win. Why? Because they stand behind the team. You guys, whatever teams you like or love, you stand behind the team. This is going to be the year. I think we're going to do it. I think we're just this close from winning a championship. And all the news is about building up the fan base. Not with this media and not with America. They don't look to build up the fan base. Hey, listen, guys, we did a great a great bombing. It looks like it worked very well. We're going to get some more information for you in the next couple weeks. But, man, they really did well. I think President Trump just completely did this to their nuclear program. Blah, blah, blah. See the difference? We're going to get some more information for you over the next couple weeks once we find out what the hell's going on. That's not how the media works. You would think if you were patriotic, that's what you would be saying. Hey, there's more to learn. We're not sure. We don't have all the data. We don't have all the facts yet. In addition, we don't know what Iran's going to do. We don't know what Israel's going to do. But we'll bring you what happens, not what we think is going to happen. More of this stuff.
Reporting what was leaked to CNN by a U.S. official from that initial.
What we now know from that briefing, first time we know it, is that as it was designed, as these massive ordnance penetrators with significant computer software engineering went directly down those three ventilator shafts, specifically as designed. And until you actually do it, you never know if it's going to work. It worked. It seems to have worked flawlessly. That is very important information. He also pointed out something.
Same network. Exact same network, exact same two people besides, what's his name, Wolf Blitzer. These ladies were on earlier. Exact same stuff. And now they got a professional out there, and it's like, oh, so you mean they actually did tell the truth? Yeah.
We take for granted. You know, a Patriot interceptor is traveling at 3,000 miles an hour, about Mach 4, to hit a ballistic missile, traveling at about 6,000 miles an hour, Mach 8. This is really difficult. We take for granted how this stuff all works. I thought that was very important to lay out. So as I come out of this briefing, I now know BDA level 2, as I mentioned. Level 1, first 24 hours, you're looking at imagery. Level 2, did the ordnance work? Did everything go as we had wanted? The answer now is yes. And we're now in the phase of level 3, collecting all sources of information and then putting that together with nuclear experts to determine if they have these pieces and parts here, could they reconstitute them? With some political analysts to say, would the Iranians do that? What would be the restraints? To then have a comprehensive assessment of where we are. With the objective being, Iran can never have a nuclear weapon and its enrichment program has to be completely destroyed. I think from what I've seen, the 20,000 centrifuges, you had about 17,000 in the Natanz, about 3,000 in Fordo, they are all completely destroyed. I am very confident.
Those two ladies up there, let me show you. Not looking real happy right now. Everything they told you about it being fake, the guy you brought on your channel says, yeah, I think they blowed it out. I think it's done. By the way, if they were able to move some of this, uranium they keep talking about, maybe they could package it in a dirty bomb or something. But other than that, what the hell they got to do with it? Their laboratories are gone. Nobody talks about that. But again, why the sour pusses, lady? Why are you looking like that? It's absolutely crazy. Absolutely stunningly crazy as we wait for Karoline to come out. But before she comes out,
breaking news into the Fanfare news feed.
All right, people, we got some breaking news. Huge, thanks, SV. Huge breaking news. President Trump has convinced Bibi Netanyahu to end the war in Gaza within, here's that word again, within 2 weeks. Per multiple reports, the peace president never stops. They've agreed that UAE, Egypt, and 2 other Arab states will govern Gaza jointly, replacing Hamas. Hamas leaders would be exiled. Go away. You must leave. And hostages released. In addition, Saudi Arabia and Syria would establish diplomatic ties with Israel. This would be great if Trump can pull it off. Boom. 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 Huge, as President Trump would say. So that may jump to the top of the list this afternoon as she begins talking. President Trump is getting it done. Can you see the headlines on CNN right now? Our reports say that Bibi Netanyahu is going to be going to jail on Monday, so this arrangement means absolutely nothing. Things are getting done. As I said last night, when President Trump went over and got this royal welcome in the UAE and the royal welcome in Saudi Arabia, do you think they were already talking about what was coming? Hey, listen, if I get this done, if I'm able to get Bibi to agree to this, what do you guys think? Well, here's what we think. Hey, we'll tell you, President Trump, we're thinking, yeah, if you do that, here's what we'll do. Say UAE, Egypt, and other Arab states will be the ones governing Gaza. Gotcha. And also, Saudi Arabia is going to establish diplomatic ties with Israel. All right, guys, I'm going to go fly over now. We're going to bomb the shit out of Iran, and we'll get this going. Okay? Good? Good with you? Everybody good here? Good. Of course that's what happened. Absolutely, of course that's what happened. He went over to UAE. He went to Saudi Arabia. He sent Witkoff all over the place, Marco all over the place. They put the deal in place. They all knew what was going to happen. Then he went to Bibi and said, we're gonna bomb Iran, and we're gonna make sure you're safe, but you're gonna have to stop the war, and you're gonna have to let these guys come in and rule Gaza. You'll be safe. These guys will rule Gaza. They'll be gone in Saudi Arabia, and you guys got to kiss and make nicey. You know that's exactly what happened. And he played all of this, and I think what pisses the media off is they had no idea. They had no idea that the president was putting all of this together. And now you can look back and go, oh yeah, I remember, yeah, here's a video. This is when he went to the UAE, and they're all doing their dances and, the Macarena and doing all kinds of stuff. And they were happy that Trump was there, and he was treated like royalty. Love you. And then he goes to NATO and goes, pay up, pay up, which was pretty interesting as he bombed the crap out of Iran. Then he went over to NATO and said, you don't think that had a little bit to do with it? Hey, guys, you see what we just did last weekend? Come on, man. Did you all see it coming on your radar? No, you didn't ever see it coming, right? Pay me. Okay, we're going to raise it to 5%. Funny. Didn't see CNN posting much about that. They leave it to us to say that, to let you know. Hey, put all these dominoes in an order and start looking at this realistically and take your eyes off of what they're actually trying to gaslight Americans and talk about, stupid crap, DEI. Hey, you didn't talk nice about the women pilots. They're soldiers. They're soldiers. We don't care whether they squat or stand when they go in the stall. They fire bombs. They fly jets. You guys got the problem on whether they wear skirts or makeup or whatever. As far as we're concerned, they're soldiers. Media can't take what's going on. The Democrats can't take what's going on. They can't admit at this point, one, they hate the word lethality, that we are the most lethal force on the planet, and that we used that lethal force. And then President Trump hopped on a plane, went over to the NATO, and said, you got me now? You hear me? You understand? Yes. And they cut checks, called him daddy, which freaked them out. And now today, Israel's like, yeah, okay, we'll stop. If that's not the most consequential president I've ever seen, I don't know what. And checking the calendar here, that's 5 months, yo. That's in 5 months. He is changing the world as we see it. Like that. Now, the internal civil war is something we're going to have to deal with next. So I'm waiting for him to do it. While we're waiting for him to come out, I see everybody getting seated. Something tells me this is going to be quite the heated press conference. Meanwhile, while that is happening, let me just bring this to your attention because I don't want to piss off a whole bunch of people, but well, you know what? At this point, you're almost making me want to play the Judy Garland thing about I don't care, because I don't care, because when I see this, I really don't care. The Dow is up, S&P is up, NASDAQ is up. It's all green. Stocks rise, lifting S&P 500 to within inches of a new record. How can you argue with that? How can you not see that prosperity is returning to America? Only because maybe you don't want to. We're about to become a more prosperous nation than we ever had, and it's only been 5 months in. And all everybody's waiting for right now, and it's coming, is for Jerome Powell to get off his butt and lower the interest rates. If you're not strapped in when he lowers those interest rates, you're going to watch the rocket take off and you won't be on it. You won't have a chair. It will be phenomenal all the way around for everybody, not just the richest among us, not just for the 1%, for everybody. So, if you can, I would go ahead right now and get your ducks in a row really quick. It's only a matter of time. It's not an if. They will lower the interest rates and things will shoot up and you're going to go, damn, I wish I knew. And then you're also going to want to make sure you buy some gold and silver. We're in a very volatile time right now. There's plenty of financial uncertainty. Now is not the time to be speculative. And I'm also speaking from a personal perspective.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see all of you. With President Trump as commander-in-chief, the world is a much safer place. After decades in which past presidents coddled and enabled the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, President Trump finally ended the immediate threat of a nuclear Iranian regime. Following President Trump's command, the most powerful military in the history of the world executed massive precision strikes on 3 of the Iranian regime's key nuclear facilities. The objective of Operation Midnight Hammer was to destroy the regime's nuclear enrichment capacity and stop the grave nuclear threat posed to the United States, Israel, and the rest of the free world. The mission, which will go down in the history books, was an overwhelming success. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Raisin Kane covered the operation in great detail at their briefing this morning at the Pentagon, and I encourage every American to watch it. As President Trump has said repeatedly, the United States of America has the greatest, fiercest, and bravest armed forces ever to stride the face of this earth, and we couldn't be more grateful and proud of our nation's warriors. The Iranian regime was weeks away from being able to produce a nuclear weapon that would threaten the entire world before President Trump took this decisive action on Saturday night to obliterate their nuclear capabilities. The contrast in leadership could not be more clear. Barack Obama and Joe Biden sent pallets of cash, American taxpayer dollars, in a failed attempt to buy the Iranian regime's compliance with a weak and ineffective deal. President Trump sent a fleet of American warplanes to destroy Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon. The United States and the entire world are safer because of this president's decisiveness. Despite agenda-driven leaks by the fake news media aimed at undermining this incredible accomplishment achieved by President Trump and our brave fighter pilots, there is broad consensus emerging already that Iran's nuclear capabilities were indeed destroyed. The United States, Israel, the United Nations, and even Iran all agree they can no longer build a nuclear weapon. So why did the president immediately turn to obliterating after the Iranian nuclear threat? Securing peace. Within 48 hours of the devastating strike, President Trump and his team brokered a historic ceasefire between Israel and Iran and officially ended the 12-day war. Between Israel and Iran and officially ended the 12-day war. The Middle East is now shifting away from chaos and bloodshed and moving toward the beginning stages of a new era of peace and stability that President Trump has long called on them to achieve. This was unthinkable at this time last week, and this is what peace through strength looks like. Under President Trump, America will relentlessly advance our interests without being dragged into endless wars. His fearless leadership guarantees America is once again respected across the world. Just look at what he was able to accomplish at the NATO summit in the Netherlands. Many of you were there. Our allies agreed to invest 5% of their GDP annually in defense because President Trump demanded it. This will be the most significant reinforcement of NATO's collective defense in the history of the NATO alliance. And as a result, the United States of America will carry less of the burden, and our NATO allies will be stronger than ever before. As NATO Secretary General Rutte put it, for too long, one ally, the United States, and our taxpayers, I may add, carried too much of the burden of that commitment. And that changes today. President Trump made this change possible. We will produce trillions more for our common defense to make us stronger and fairer by equalizing spending between America and our allies. This is the Trump effect. This is what the president meant when he declared that America is back. Now, back here at home, Americans are paying much cheaper prices for gasoline this summer, as both the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times pointed out today. Here's how the Wall Street Journal put it. Hitting the road this summer won't bring as much of a big hit to your wallet. The national average for a gallon of regular gasoline is about 23 cents cheaper than this time last year. Analysts say plentiful supply is expected to keep prices down in the coming months. These are the cheapest gas prices at this point of the summer since 2021. And despite all the doom casting from liberal pundits, oil prices on Tuesday were lower than before the Israel-Iran conflict began. As President Trump continues to unleash American energy, our country will have even more efficient, reliable, and affordable energy to protect our national security and fuel our people. Later this afternoon, here at the White House, the president will host a One Big Beautiful event in the East Room to rally Republicans to get the One Big Beautiful bill across the finish line. At that event, he will be joined by everyday Americans from across the country who will massively benefit from the common sense policies and provisions within this bill. This is the largest tax cut for working and middle-class Americans in history, and it's going to put more money into the pockets of hardworking Americans. Families will see an average increase in take-home pay of more than $10,000 per year. Americans earning between $30,000 and $80,000 per year will see a 15% tax cut. Overtime and tipped workers will save thousands of dollars annually. And our amazing seniors will receive historic financial relief by reducing the tax burden on their Social Security benefits. Simply put, this bill is going to unlock the golden age of America. And we look forward to continuing to work with the Senate and the House to see this bill on the president's desk for signature by Independence Day. Here in our new media seat today, we have Colin Anderson with the Washington Free Beacon, who will kick off our question and answer. Colin, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline. We reported yesterday on a briefing from the Israeli defense minister in which she said the U.S. and Israel are working together to monitor any attempts from Iran to rebuild their nuclear program, and also that if Iran was to do so, the U.S. and Israel would work together to once again destroy that nuclear program. Is that aligned with the president's thinking?
Look, the president, as I said in those opening remarks, Colin, and thanks for being with us today, views the Middle East on its way to peace and prosperity. And the president used strength on Saturday night. The whole world saw that the United States is indeed the most lethal fighting force in the world with those precision strikes on Saturday evening. But the president wants peace. He always has. And right now we're on a diplomatic path with Iran. The president and his team, namely Special Envoy Witkoff, continue to be in communication with the Iranians and especially our Gulf and Arab partners in the region, to come to an agreement with Iran. As for our alliance with the State of Israel and that friendship and that partnership between the United States and the State of Israel, I would argue it has never been stronger. And we see a new era in which perhaps some of these Gulf and Arab states can sign on to the Abraham Accords. That was one of the president's most signature accomplishments in his first term, and he'd like to see more of those countries sign on in this second term. And so we look forward to sustaining a long and durable peace in the region, and the president wants to do that through a diplomatic solution. But as he proved on Saturday night, he's not afraid to use strength if we need to do it. Gabe.
Thanks, Caroline. The president mentioned in a Truth Social post that no enriched uranium was moved from Fordow. What about the other two sites, Isfahan and Natanz? And how can the president be so sure that no uranium was moved?
Well, what I can assure you is that the United States and our intelligence agencies and Director Ratcliffe and the President's entire national security team were obviously watching these sites very closely in the weeks and the days leading up to the attack on Saturday, which I will add was one of the most secretive and successful operations in United States history. I think many of you in this room would agree with that, because none of you in this room knew about the strike on Saturday until it took place. So we were watching closely, and there was no indication to the United States that any of that enriched uranium was moved prior to the strike.
From any of the sites?
Correct.
And then one more thing, Caroline. Next week, the president mentioned that there would be talks with Iran. Didn't mention any details, and Iran has not confirmed them. Can you share any details about any potential talks next week?
We don't have anything scheduled as of now, but I spoke to our Special Envoy Witkoff at length this morning, and I can assure all of you we continue to be in close communication with the Iranians and through our intermediaries as well, namely the Qataris, who have been an incredible ally and partner throughout this entire effort. And as I said, this administration is always focused on diplomacy and peace, and we want to ensure we can get to a place where Iran agrees to a non-enrichment civil nuclear program, and there are many other requests that the United States has. Those details continue to really, they're just starting. Of course, the operation was just on Saturday night, but we are in touch, and if there is a meeting, we will let you know, as we always do. Ryan.
Thank you, Caroline. There's two, one on trade. On the July deadlines coming up for the trade deals, is that deadline still hard and fast for the president, or is he now considering even coming to trade deals after that deadline, and where is he on that going forward?
I think the president has been asked this quite a few times by many of you in the media. I've heard him answer it at press conferences and at gaggles. He just spoke about it on Air Force One. The deadline is not critical. The president can simply provide these countries with a deal if they refuse to make us one by the deadline, and that means the president can pick a reciprocal tariff rate that he believes is advantageous for the United States and for the American worker, and he will continue to do that. But as for the deals, our United States Trade Ambassador, Jameson Greer, I speak to him frequently. He's working very hard, and he has had very good and productive discussions with many of our key trading partners.
And on the One Big Beautiful Bill, there's conversations on the Hill right now about the Medicaid cuts. I'm curious, if the final bill that the president's been talking about comes to him and it has Medicaid cuts in it, will he sign it, or would he rather just Congress do away with those cuts?
I think our friends in both the Senate and the House know exactly where the president stands on Medicaid. He wants to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse, and they are working to do that in the Senate right now. Jennifer.
Follow up on that, on the Big Beautiful Bill. Is there enough time for Congress to work through the issues it needs to work through? I'm saying, does the president need to move back his deadline a little bit?
We expect that bill to be on the president's desk for signature by July 4th. I know that there was a ruling by the Senate parliamentarian this morning. Look, this is part of the process. This is part of the inner workings of the United States Senate, but the president is adamant about seeing this bill on his desk here at the White House by Independence Day.
And then on Israel, is there a date set for the Prime Minister to visit the White House yet? Is he coming in a couple weeks?
There isn't a date, but the Prime Minister has expressed interest in coming to the White House to meet with the president and come to Washington. The president is obviously very open to that, but we don't have a date. When we do, we'll let you all know. Kate.
The president suggested he was open to sending more Patriot air defense missiles to Ukraine. Is that going to happen, and were there any other assurances that he made directly to Zelensky when they met?
I'll let the president speak on that. That was a private conversation between he and President Zelensky. But the meeting was a good meeting, and it was a meeting towards progress. And the president, as he said, repeatedly wants to see this war come to an end. But I'll let him speak on that specifically.
And Witkoff yesterday suggested that there would be more countries signing on to the Abraham Accords. What's the timeline on that, and which countries specifically is the administration looking to have sign on?
Well, the president is certainly hopeful that more countries in the region will sign on to the Abraham Accords. Again, we want to see a long, withstanding, endurable peace in the Middle East, and that's the way to do it. And when the president met with the new president of Syria, that was one of the requests that he made for Syria to sign on to the Abraham Accords. I don't have a timeline for you, but this administration wants to see that happen, and our partners in the region should know that. Rachel.
Thanks so much. Just to follow back up on the meeting that the president mentioned about wanting to have this meeting with the Iranians next week. Clearly there's a willingness here from the administration to want to meet with Iranian officials. What is the holdup here in trying to schedule it? Are you experiencing any resistance from the Iranians?
No, have some patience. We just had this strike on Saturday night. The president secured a ceasefire. A lot has happened in the last week. He was just in the Netherlands. Now he's back home to have a big event this afternoon on the One Big Beautiful Bill and get our domestic priorities across the finish line. So we'll get there. And like I said, we're in constant communication.
And just one more, just the goal of the meeting. The president mentioned yesterday that it may not be necessary to have an agreement with the Iranians. What is the purpose? What would be the goal of this meeting?
Again, to continue moving forward towards a long-standing peace in the Middle East. Jordan.
Yes, Caroline, thank you. So the president had some harsh words for both Israel and Iran on Tuesday as he was departing from the NATO summit after they both violated the ceasefire, he said. What's your response to Americans who are worried the peace isn't going to last and think that Israel is trying to plunge us into another endless war on their behalf?
I think the fact that the president was able to successfully negotiate a ceasefire when nobody thought that was possible, it was a surprise to everyone in this room. It was a surprise to the world, but the president got it done because he wants to see peace in this world. He does not want the United States to be dragged into these conflicts. Again, he's not afraid to use strength if he has to, but the president has already proven he can put America first and deliver on peace at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive goals.
And then one more. After Kari Lake, she testified in the House Foreign Affairs Committee on the waste, fraud, and abuse and the rot, really, in Voice of America and USAGF. The president called for Congress to kill it. What does that look like, and is the president willing to sign an executive order?
Well, I believe that action would have to be legislative through Congress, and the president directed Congress to get that done in his Truth Social post yesterday. If there is any executive action that can be taken to cut some of the waste, fraud, and abuse or do away with the program entirely, I'm sure our great Deputy Chief of Staff, Stephen Miller, is already looking into it. And if it can be done, it will be done here at the White House, but Congress should act as well. To the back. Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, Caroline, thank you. The administration has said
to the back, and then Carrie, I'll come to you.
Said that the DIA report was low confidence intel. Can you share what other assessments are currently underway to get to the bottom of just how effective these strikes were?
Yes. Well, I can assure you what the CIA director said, that when we look at the entirety of the intelligence that we have to this date, it concludes that these strikes on the Iranian nuclear facilities were absolutely successful. It was a total obliteration, as the president said, and not only does our own intelligence say that, but also the Iranian foreign minister has said that. We saw Israel conclude the same thing based on their own intelligence. We also had the United Nations say that as well. So I think the only other time the United Nations, Israel, Iran, and the United States has agreed on something is that the sky is blue, but they all agree that Iran's nuclear facilities were completely demolished. And I would just like to reemphasize, you mentioned this was a low confidence preliminary intelligence assessment, and the entirety of that assessment was not leaked to the media. Only tidbits of that assessment were leaked to CNN. And we have seen this playbook run before, where you have people in the intelligence community, or perhaps on Capitol Hill, we don't know, but I believe the FBI is investigating to find out who that leaker was, because it's illegal and they should be held accountable for that, leaked bits and pieces of an intel assessment to push a false narrative. And it's to the same reporter, I will add, Natasha Bertrand of CNN, who has done this in the past. In 2020, it was Natasha Bertrand who had 51 intelligence analysts falsely lie to her, but she still put it on paper for some reason, that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation. We all know that's not true, right? We can all agree on that now. That was a lie from the intelligence community. Also in 2020, this same reporter, Natasha Bertrand, wrote that a top intel agency ruled out the man-made lab leak theory of the coronavirus origins. Again, the president was right about that. This reporter wrote a lie from the intelligence community to seek a narrative she wanted to prove, and guess what? We now know that's the truth. Also, in 2024, Bertrand pushed the suckers and losers hoax. She also pushed the fine people hoax, which was taking the president's words purposely out of context. And then last October, and I believe this is notable, Natasha Bertrand published an article in Politico from the intelligence agency. She said that John Ratcliffe was speaking without any evidence when he said Iran was attempting to undermine President Trump's presidential campaign. And then we, of course, found out that was absolutely true. In fact, the Biden administration declassed an intel report which said they had high confidence that Iran had done exactly what Ratcliffe alleged. They did run an influence campaign to hurt President Trump's candidacy. In fact, we know the Iranians tried to take President Trump's life. And so this is a reporter who has been unfortunately used by people who dislike Donald Trump in this government to push fake and false narratives. She should be ashamed of herself. And that's not what reporting is. Journalism is trying to find the facts and the truth. And this week, we saw this same reporter being used to push a fake narrative to try to undermine the President of the United States, and more importantly, the brave fighter pilots who conducted one of the most successful operations in United States history. And I think the American people fully know that this operation was a complete and total success. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Caroline. The Miami Herald recently published a story saying the Trump administration was targeting migrant foster children. The Trump administration has denounced this as false. Could you clarify the Trump administration's position on protecting migrant children, particularly the 300,000 lost under the Biden administration?
Yes, I saw that Miami Herald article yesterday, and I was aghast at the headline. It's egregious to accuse this administration of trying to target foster children. That is not at all what is happening at the Department of Homeland Security. And I learned that the Department of Homeland Security actually tried to work in good faith with this reporter to get this story right, to explain that this administration is trying to protect foster children. We are trying to keep children out of harm's way, even if that means their parents are not law-abiding citizens. We want to protect children, unlike the previous administration, which allowed children to be trafficked and raped, and in some cases killed because of the open border policies. Unfortunately, the Miami Herald just completely degraded themselves with this report, despite having a full list of facts from the Department of Homeland Security. It's another example of fake news. And the May border numbers speak for themselves. Not a single illegal alien was allowed into this country because of this administration's border policies in the month of May. That means not a single child was allowed into this country, possibly with human smugglers or human traffickers. And we know that was happening at the rate of thousands and thousands of children every single month in the previous administration for 4 years. And you didn't see any reporting of that from the Miami Herald, but now they're trying to accuse this administration. And we tried to give them the facts, and they refused to report them. So thank you for bringing that report to light. Aisha.
Good to see you again.
You too.
I know you're looking for
You're
this.
usually on the Hill.
I know, I'm here today. I know you're looking for this leaker. Is it your belief, I know you said earlier you're not sure if it's on Capitol Hill or at the Pentagon, but is it your belief that it might be in Capitol Hill, and how confident are you that you'll find this leaker?
Well, I'm not personally looking for the leaker. The FBI is looking for the leaker, so you'll have to ask them in the Department of Justice in terms of this investigation. But leaking top secret classified intelligence is a crime, and people need to be held accountable for that crime.
Can I just ask you about how you're going to be limiting intel to Congress? What would you say to lawmakers who say they have oversight privileges, they need this information?
This administration wants to ensure that classified intelligence is not ending up in irresponsible hands, and that people who have the privilege of viewing this top secret classified information are being responsible with it. And unfortunately, clearly, someone who had their hands on this, and it was a very few people, few number of people in our government who saw this report, that person was irresponsible with it, and we need to get to the bottom of it, and we need to strengthen that process to protect our national security and protect the American public. Mary Margaret, go ahead.
Thank you, Caroline.
Sure.
You just laid out a lot of different stories about disinformation that Natasha Bertrand had pushed during her time at Politico and at CNN. Why would any member of the Trump administration leak anything to her?
Well, again, as I just said, we're investigating who that leaker was. It could have been someone in the intelligence community, or it could have been someone on Capitol Hill who had access to this document. The FBI is searching for that person. Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. The president was
And
obviously...
clearly it was done to undermine the president, to answer your question.
And I'm sorry, I really wanted to follow up on that really quickly. Before the strikes on Iran, we saw a number of other leaks about Tulsi Gabbard, the Vice President Vance. Is there an effort to divide the president's team when it comes to these leaks and which reporters they choose?
I do believe there's an effort on the outside of this building to try to divide the president's team on the inside, and sometimes you have to look at these headlines and laugh, because I've been in meetings where I know these things are absolutely not true, and again, we do our best here, I believe, to try to push back and correct the record with all of you, but there is fake reporting. That's just the reality of this country, unfortunately, but I can assure you the president's team is strong, especially the national security team. Everyone is very proud of the president, of our commander-in-chief, and of our military for the successful operation that took place on Saturday night.
Thanks, Caroline. The President was obviously very pleased with getting his NATO allies to increase defence spending. He's made the same demands of Asia-Pacific allies of the United States, including Australia, where I'm from. How does the NATO result impact negotiations with Asia-Pacific allies? Does it, for say, strengthen the President's resolve to say, well, you know, our NATO allies have done it, now you need to do it too?
Yeah, I mean, look, if our allies in Europe and our NATO allies can do it, I think our allies and our friends in the Asia-Pacific region can do it as well. But as for our specific relations in those discussions, I'll let the president speak on those.
Can I just ask as well, when he had to leave the G7 early, he missed out on a number of bilateral meetings that were scheduled with other world leaders, including the Prime Minister of Australia. Obviously, President Zelensky, he's managed to meet since then, but are there plans afoot to make up for those meetings with the world leaders that he missed out on?
Yeah, I think many of those world leaders understood the situation happening in the Middle East and the urgency and the need for the president to get back to Washington to monitor that situation. And obviously that was the right call, considering the success of not only the operation on Saturday night, but also the ceasefire that the president has since brokered on behalf of not just our country, but the entire world, frankly. But he has made up a couple of those meetings, and he has had direct phone calls with some of those leaders he was supposed to meet with as well. Not all. Ed.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Caroline. So to clarify on trade, so what happens to the countries other than China on July 9th?
That's a decision for the president to make, and I will let him make it.
Okay, and secondly, so now that oil is just about upper $60s a barrel, when's the administration going to start refilling the Strategic Petroleum Reserve?
That's, again, a decision for the president to make and our Secretary of Energy. There's no imminent plans to do that, from what I understand. But as you have seen with the plummeting of oil prices in this country, it's because this president and our Department of Energy have really tapped into our resources here, and we have an increase of supply, unlike the previous administration that totally hampered our domestic energy efforts, but totally robbed and drained our strategic petroleum reserves. So when the time is right, the president will make that decision. But right now, we are utilizing the resources that God blessed us with right here in our country to produce energy for our people.
Yeah, one more if I could. On the one big beautiful bill, does the president believe the parliamentarian of the Senate should be removed?
I haven't spoken to him about that, and I'll let him speak on it. However, again, he knows this is part of the process and the inner workings of the Senate, and he wants to see this bill done, and he remains very much engaged in these conversations and in this process with lawmakers in both the Senate and the House side, and the whole White House does as well. In the back. Yes, Libby.
Thank you, Caroline. Earlier today, the president stated that these photos out of Fordo that were showing nuclear materials being removed, suspected of showing that, were just concrete workers. What intelligence is that based upon?
Look, the president shared that statement with all of you, and I already answered the question about whether uranium was moved prior to the strike, and the answer is no.
Is there a chance that the DIA report becomes public at any point?
I don't think this administration is going to get into the habit of sharing classified, top-secret information. Those classifications exist for a reason, and I wish everyone who had the privilege of looking at these documents would respect that. Daniel?
Thank you, Caroline. You've been emphatic that the president's expectations for the one big beautiful bill to hit that July 4th deadline. You had a big meeting on Capitol Hill yesterday with the Republican Study Committee. Did you walk away from that meeting pleased with what you heard? Did it bolster your confidence that Congress is able to meet that the expectation of the president?
Yes, I did. The camaraderie at the Republican Study Committee was great. Members, expressed, their feelings about the bill, but as we saw, the bill passed through the House despite many people believing it could not. So the House is ready to receive this bill back from the Senate so they can pass it and bring it to the president's desk. So it was a great meeting, and Republicans are very unified. And we also talked about the mayoral race in New York City and how the victory of the Democratic primary candidate really shows how far left and unhinged the Democrat Party has become. And Republicans truly are on the right side of every issue in this country. We are on the side of no men in women's sports, on the side of low taxes, secure borders. So that was the topic of discussion. And the unity was strong and the camaraderie was high. And I know everyone looks forward to being here at the White House for the bill signing next week. Sure.
Thanks, Caroline. The Supreme Court ruled this morning that South Carolina is allowed to deem Planned Parenthood as not a qualified health care provider, and that will block it from receiving Medicaid funds. Does the White House have a statement on that ruling, and would the president support a standalone bill from Congress to defund Planned Parenthood at a federal level rather than letting each state determine it?
I'll let the president speak on that legislative priority, but as for the Supreme Court ruling, the president has always maintained that Americans should not be forced to violate their conscience and their religious liberty by having their tax dollars fund abortions, and we're glad the Supreme Court ruled on that side today, or yesterday.
Then on Iran, but on a domestic matter, in January, President Trump revoked security details for several former administrations, including Mike Pompeo, Mark Milley, and John Bolton. Given the heightened tensions with Iran right now, is he considering restoring those security details?
That's not under consideration right now. Fran.
If I could follow up on trade, and then I have a question about the bill as well. Are you saying at this point that there's no plans to extend that July 8th and July 9th deadline? I mean, especially with everything that's been going on from Iran to the tax bill on Capitol Hill, is that under consideration at all at this point?
Perhaps it could be extended, but that's a decision for the president to make.
And as far as the bill itself goes, since the president has been back, what has he been doing beyond the event that he's having later today to try and get wobbly senators on board? Is he making phone calls, twisting arms? Is he having some people over to the White House? Can you tell us more about that effort?
There have been meetings at the White House this week. I saw some senators rolling out of the Oval Office the other day, and the president remains on the phones talking to his friends in the Senate when necessary, and when they call, he picks up the phone. And I think that's why they greatly trust and respect his leadership. And we're having that big event later this afternoon at 4 o'clock. I would encourage you all to tune in. We're going to have some great everyday Americans who are in attendance. We'll have some tipped delivery drivers. I think we're going to have a barber from the great state of Arkansas here in attendance. We're going to have some law enforcement officers, some Border Patrol agents, and Tom Homan will be speaking as well. So the point of this event is to show the American people how this bill works for them and how there are provisions in this bill that will change their lives.
Can you tell us which senators you saw rolling out of the Oval Office?
I'll let the president speak on that if he wish. I don't share details about his private meetings without his permission. Emily, go ahead.
Today, the Justice Department announced it was opening an investigation into employment discrimination at the University of California, alleging they had race and sex-based quotas. Federal law bars hiring somebody based on their race or sex, but do you also object to universities working harder to make sure they have a diverse group of candidates to consider? And do you expect more investigations like this from DOJ?
I have not seen that investigation from the Department of Justice, but I can certainly check in. What I can tell you, it's the position of this president that we want to restore a merit-based society and culture in the United States of America where people are not hired nor are they promoted based on their color of their skin or their gender. The president wants people to be hired in the workforce because of their merit and their skill, and I think most Americans agree with that. I'll take one more. Carrie, because I promised you earlier.
So the Ayatollah Khomeini came out and said that Iran will, quote, never surrender to the U.S. That being said, what remains to do with the possible responses from Iranian proxies in the region and even in the U.S.?
Look, we saw the Ayatollah's video, and when you have a totalitarian regime, you have to save face. I think any common sense, open-minded person knows the truth about the precision strikes on Saturday night. They were wildly successful, and it's what led to the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Iran, which the president is very grateful for. And the United States of America remains prepared to defend our assets and our personnel in the region. And again, I would just emphasize the success of the strike that took place on Saturday night, and the world is a safer place because of it. Thanks, guys, for coming today, and you'll see the president at 4 o'clock. Thanks.
All right. Microphone on. Here we go. Awesome. You see, one thing I think you guys now can really digest what I said yesterday. Something went out there. So I don't know if they got a text or memo or what they got from President Trump, but he said, no more playing with these people. Take them on to their faces. You'll see them recoil and run back to their studios and CNN, and there they're going to try and do battle. They're not going to be able to stand up to you. And she just came out and just bam, 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 pretty much ending Natasha Bertrand's career at this point. I can't wait to flick on CNN and watch her little head going, oh, they're lying. Well, you should have said something right there. You had a chance. There are people, Caitlin Collins was sitting right there in the front row. She could have raised her hand and said, hey, Caroline, I don't really appreciate what you say about my girl. We have to talk about this. You're a liar. Nope. You won't do it though, huh? No, because everybody knows you're full of crap. So I'm going to cut this short because we got to get back here at 3:30 or so for President Trump for the third show of the day. By the way, tonight I told you we're probably going to do movie night because 4 shows, that's a lot. That's a lot. So we'll see about that. But I just want to recap the breaking news that happened today thus far. It's early. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in favor of South Carolina, banning Planned Parenthood from Medicaid, getting taxpayer dollars from Medicaid. So, nope, that's a big problem for the Democrats. They are now no longer going to be able to use taxpayer dollars, your money and my money, for baby removal. Can't happen. Sorry. And watch how many states follow suit very quickly. Again, once the Supreme Court rules, there's the roadmap. They have ruled that this, whatever South Carolina put out, whatever the ruling or law that South Carolina put out there that they challenged, has now been upheld. All you've got to do is change the state name and some dates, and you're good to go. Arkansas, Mississippi, and on and on and on. So half the states in the union are about to get rid of Medicaid, Planned Parenthood, using Medicaid to remove babies. That's a big win. Another thing here, I put it on the scroll. Not sure if you saw it, but this one here. FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino just announced that the FBI has arrested over 825 Speedos. You know, the bathing suits. I have to say that because of the people up here would get mad. So 825 Speedos and 140 of their distributors have now been arrested. You know what I'm talking about. You can read it right there. It's almost 1,000 bad guys who hurt kids gone, been arrested. If you're preying on our children, we are coming for you. It's only a matter of time. That you got to just say right there, all right, Dan Bongino is doing something. I'm pretty sure the people who just got locked up, they realize, yeah, he's doing a job. He's absolutely doing a job. So let me just check here. I love that, especially that they're helping kids. All right, so let me go ahead and do super chats if there's anything in here so I can get going, because I got to go ahead and get ready and take a nap and have lunch, walk the dogs. Robin's not here, so let me just make sure I've got everything in place here. Nice short video show for today, but we figured that might be the case. But she took a lot more questions than she normally takes. I can't imagine what President Trump is doing at 4 o'clock. So I'm going to cover something at 4 o'clock today, and I want you guys to hear it. I talked to Congressman Timmons this morning in a taped interview, and I wasn't going to show it because he pretty much pissed me off. And he talks about the parliamentarian that you guys have all been hearing about, this parliamentarian who's trying to do, bad things with the big, beautiful bill. I'm going to let you hear that at 3:30 when I log on. But needless to say, there's some problems with this big, beautiful bill. All right, not the bill, with the way they're treating it. And John Thune just said he's not going to fire her. So let's continue. Just another knucklehead test was erroring on the last show. Thank you. Just please strangle the CNN info. Just another knucklehead again. Wow, 3, bro. YouTube will not let me, but the letters for that channel we're talking about right now. Wow, they won't let you say CNN. Interesting. Bielka, Mandami is against capitalism, but selling merch. Exactly. It's all BS. It's all BS. Wallace Hagel. This was the first mission of its kind in history. It was done perfectly. No deaths, no lost equipment. Mission was success. It was historical. Every single one of those things you said right there is absolutely true, and the media won't cover it. Chester Knucklehead again. One of the stars is a button. Okay. Wallace again. These pilots need to be remembered for their valor and competence for recorded history. This was historical, done right the first time. I want to address that for a second. When General Kane was talking about the family, see, the only people who really knew what's going on was obviously the people in the military, the pilots, and their families. And they kissed them all goodbye, not knowing. This is something the media could do a story on. These people said, yeah, goodbye, love you, and not knowing if they're ever going to see these people again. They know, the family knows, they're going to fly 18 hours, drop some bombs, and fly 18 hours back. And in the interim, while you're doing that, you're flying and you're getting refueled, and that's got to go correctly, because if that doesn't go right, things can go boom there. Then the fuel tank is, you keep going. Then another fuel tanker. Oh, here's some more stuff. Everything okay? Yeah, we're going to keep going. Now we get over the target. We got to make sure we're not getting shot down. Bam, 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 boom. All right, turn around, fly back. Get some more gas. Fly some more. Get some more gas. Fly home. All that while, it's all danger. You guys have flown. You've been in airplanes. Every single thing that they're doing has danger. And these people didn't know whether they were going to come home or not. They had to rely on their skill. They had to rely on the intelligence, rely on their bosses, carry out this mission, and get home safely. And land. And then get to see their loved ones 36 hours later, like going through a time warp and going, whew, he's back, she's back. Oh my God, thank you. Thank you, Lord. You brought them back. Only to come back and see these idiots. That just drives me absolute bat poop crazy. Scum. Absolute scum. And like I said this morning, these people aren't reading the newspaper. They're not looking for accolades. None of that stuff. Except for the fact what Brian Potato Head Seltzer said is that does not make us patriotic. You didn't even think about how the relatives thought. The family. Insane. Sorak, what will happen if Dems win 2028 and the VP is Obama and that president steps out and put him? Prophet had vision that Obama will be president because of the change of amendment for the third term. Let's not worry about 2028 right now. Let's worry about getting we're 5 months in and you're already talking about what happens if Obama is a president in 2028. Well, you know what? Maybe you might want to get ready. I'm just saying, maybe now you want to make sure that doesn't happen. Get in the fight. Michael, Barry, why can't Trump just fire this Jerome Powell and get rid of him? I think that President Trump is most likely trying to do things the right way. Trying. You keep pushing me with these district court judges. You keep doing this, and he's trying to do it the right way so there's no question. Because once he starts pulling a pin on some of this stuff, there's no coming back. Job for 9. Barry posted a California petition. You can sign and let their voices be heard. Very well. Steven says, Barry, there are no more 5-star generals. Thank you very much. You see, that's good stuff right there. I said 5-star. People are like, hey, you messed up. You better fix that. All right, so it's a 4-star general. Is there no one over at CNN who does that? Hey, come on, man, you can't say this. The fact checker's fact checker, that kind of stuff. But thank you. Mike Moran, what movie? Where'd that go? What the heck just happened there? Hold on a second. Where'd that go? Did I hit the wrong button? Sometimes I'd be hitting the wrong button in here, but it looks like it just disappeared. No, here it is. You guys can't see it. 1 second. Let me raise it up. There we go. What movie for movie night? I'm thinking J.J. Carell's movie, and we can talk about it. It's about what Dan Bongino did today, and it has pretty much the exact same thing, that talking about the different stuff that they have found that has enabled Dan to do the things he's been doing. Just to make sure you guys know, talking about this kind of stuff. This is the kind of stuff that these couple of movies I have are talking about that nobody gets to see because the movie theaters won't show them. And they're obscurely on Rumble where people may not have the following or any direction to let people see this stuff. And, of course, you're not going to put it on YouTube. Ain't going to happen. So I'm thinking, since Dan made a big arrest today, or announced rather a big arrest today, maybe that's what we do tonight. Since that is such a big deal to me personally, and maybe to some of you, let's talk about tonight what Dan has done, and what he's announced rather, and we'll do that movie accordingly. And so we'll do that when we jump over. So I'll start early tonight because I don't think President Trump will be on long. Let's say President Trump goes from 4 to 5. We'll talk a little bit and we'll get out, and at 7 o'clock we'll go live with some news, and then I'll jump over at 8 and we'll run the movie. We won't do the music today. We'll just go right into talking about the movie. All right, so that's what we're going to do today. So I'll see you guys back here if you'd like to. I'll see you back here at 3:30. Love to have you guys. I can't imagine what President Trump has in store here, but it should be funny. Fun. And I also have some news associated with the big beautiful bill as well. All right, guys. See you guys in about 2 o'clock? About 2 hours.